Hashem's Vasai Tivtach Upi Agita Lasacha. We're now in the final Perek of Melachim Beis, and in fact, it is the final Perek of all Nevi'im Rishonim. What is the message that we can take from this Perek that will pull everything together? So if you think about it, Lamashal, once upon a time, there was a father, and that father had a son. And from the time that that son was born, the father put in everything into that son, giving him, teaching him, cherishing him, allowing him to feel like he is the chosen one. And then one day, when they hit a certain climax in their relationship, the father told the son that it's time for him to have some place, a place that would take the memories of everything that the father and the son had together, as well as all of the laws and the statutes and the rules and the ways that he has been governed by his father, and they would put all of it into a house, a very special house, a house that would be beautiful. It would be filled with their relationship, as well as beautiful objects, and so much dedication and love went into building this house. And at first, it was cherished by the father, and it was cherished by the son. What ultimately happened, after a short amount of time, is the son started to perhaps invite neighbors, people that were around. And at first, it was just to highlight how amazing of a life he had, and perhaps to help or to just do the neighborly thing of having friends and neighbors get close to the house and spend time with him, perhaps on the backyard, perhaps on the front stoop. And ultimately, these friends, as well as the son's perhaps immaturity or negatively influenced by the friends and the people around, started to allow for things to chip away at this house. And so he would come back from having an amazing time with his friends, and he would decide that he was going to, throw paint on the wallpaper, and then to hang from the chandelier, and ultimately to urinate on the carpet. And slowly but surely, he invited people and their stuff into this house, and the house started to get tarnished. And the father would hear reports about what was happening, and in a very gentle way would send letters or notes, people, messages to the son. Don't do this. Come, the house, I gave it to you as a present. Come, go back to the way that you were taught. Go into the study of your home and read some of the messages that we discussed, or go through your notebooks and see what you've learned all these years. Don't be doing this. And more, the house would get filled up with more people, more squatters, and ultimately the artwork was sometimes stolen by the squatters, and sometimes the furniture would literally just be taken out. And slowly but surely, the son stopped even getting the mail. He didn't want to hear the messages of an old guy who doesn't know any better. I know better. I'm doing it for the right reasons. Look how I am so popular. Look at, I feel so good about myself. Do you know that when I'm with you, I don't feel as good? There's no way. And ultimately, the house was in disarray. Now, while it was in disarray, and there was nobody that could tell the son otherwise, there were 4 parts to what happened next. The first was that the father surrounded the house with pickets, not allowing anybody or anything to leave the house. Perhaps as a reminder, fix what's going on in the house. think about it a little bit. These signs are there to make you wonder and think and reflect. And that lasted for a while. Ultimately, didn't really happen. Then the father brought people to knock down the walls of the area. And so all of the walls of the initial house they were broken down. And so it was very easy. All the doors, you were able to get in and out of the house. It no longer had doors that would protect from everything that was going on outside. And ultimately, when that didn't make a difference, enough of a difference, the father came, took people, and ultimately, literally burned down the house. Everything was taken out. Anyone that wanted, it was gone. It was for free. Take whatever you want. And all the hooligans took the TVs, they took all the carpets, they took the art, they took even the pictures, everything that was so precious to this father, everything that was so precious to this son. They took it all. And ultimately, upon taking it, they were rude. The people who took it were obnoxious. They were rude, and they treated the son and his immediate close family like disgustingly. They didn't just take the stuff, but they made sure that everything was, they kicked him on the way out, and they hurt him. They broke all of his bones, and they left him in such a disarray. So now he doesn't have the house, and he doesn't have legs to stand on, and he's in so much pain, and absolutely in the worst possible way. And the father cried the whole time, knowing that he just wanted his son to enjoy the house and to enjoy his life and to do something that was right for everyone, and to go back to what he learned and to go back to what he ultimately was destined for. And he tried everything, and nothing seemed to work. And so the son was in so much pain. Now, right at the point, at the point where he could have been burned too, and he can't walk, and the house is burning, and everything. Somebody grabs him, holds him up. Now, that somebody he didn't trust, and so he hurt that somebody. But he allowed him to be able to get out of the house just with enough time to watch all the devastation, but yet he still had a pulse. And that pulse is what ultimately gave the story its last vestige of hope, because he's not gone. He's on the other side of the road, and he's all broken, and he has nothing, but he's alive. He has a pulse. And that's where our story is going to end. You see, that is what happened at the end of Melachim. In this Perek, we have the 4 different levels of what happens to Klal Yisrael in this horrible Churban Beis Rishon, as we're saying goodbye to the first Beis HaMikdash. We have that there was a siege on the 10th of Teves, and that siege was for 3 years. Why was that siege for 3 years? Because Hashem said, maybe there will be some level of tshuva. And that didn't happen. So and it was precisely, the Torah says in the first pasuk, that it was exactly at the beginning, the 10th day of Tevet. Why is that important? So first of all, the Gemara in Yevamos talks about that a siege was starting on the 10th of Tevet was so significant that fast day, even if it fell out on Shabbos, we would still fast. Why? Because that is the first, and it's the firsts are, they set the tone, and it is so significant that that was the beginning of the end. But then, after that first siege, then on the 17th day of Tammuz, which there's one pasuk that says that it happened earlier on the 7th day of Tammuz. So which one is it? So in fact, the 17th day of Tammuz is the day that the walls were breached, but not these walls. In fact, these walls, but we keep to the walls that are breached. Why? Because we have that really the 17th day of Tammuz is one that is referring to the second day of, it was the 9th of here. It's mentioned on the 9th day, but but another reference, and which is why we keep to the actual fast on the 17th day, is that on the 17th day the walls were breached for the second Beis Hamikdash, and that is obviously more significant. Now what happens is that again, after the siege, there is no food. There's no food for the people are starving. Then they break into the walls, and then it is horrible. The people are killed. And what happens? So Tzidkiyahu, we know that he tries to escape. There was a king's garden that Tzidkiyahu's tunnels. So there was a secret passage that should have gotten him to the outside where he would have escaped. Why he is escaping and nobody else is escaping doesn't exactly highlight that he was doing the right thing by trying to live while everybody else inside was dying. Not exactly the best way for a king to perhaps behave, but the Midrash goes that he tried to escape throughout a cave and to go to Yericho, which would have been full circle because that's how we started in the Nevi'im Rishonim. But when he tried to go through, they caught him, and when they caught him, he was caught by the king of Bavel, and his children said, please, can you, they said, we want to die first. We don't want to see our father die. And he said, I want to die first. I don't want to see my sons die. So the king of Bavel came and, of course, first killed all of his sons and then blinded him so that he wasn't able after that to ever see anything again. And they brought him, and he was blinded, and they bound him with chains, and they brought him down to Bavel. Now, the next thing is that we know that in the 7th day of the month, which is which is in the 19th year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuzaradan, who's the executioner, he comes to Yerushalayim, and he burns down the Beis Hamikdash. We know that day burns. We know that it then burned from the 9th to the 10th, and that's what we have Tisha B'Av. So when they were burning down the whole Beis Hamikdash, they lit the whole thing on fire, and they demolished all the walls, and they treated all the people horribly, and they did everything that they could just to torment the people. And they took everything. They literally took every piece of copper that was there, and there was a lot of copper, and there was gold, and there was silver, and all of the beautiful things that Shlomo HaMelech had made, they all went, and everything was there. And what he did in addition to that was that he took the head, he took Sariah, who was the Kohen, and Sephania, who was the Kohen, the secondary Kohen, and 3 keepers of the Shomrei Hasaf. They took them, they brought them to the town, they tortured them, and they killed them in front of everyone. And they killed so many people that the place was just filled with blood. Everybody else went off into Galus. And the people that were remaining there, there were a few people that were remaining. He didn't care as much about the poor people. It's like not a big deal. And so what he does is he appoints, and this is the story. So we've had 3 out of the 4 fasts so far, and here's the last one. This is the fast of Tzom Gedalia, because Nebuchadnezzar leaves over some people, a few remaining people, and he gives them over to Gedalia ben Achikam, who is the son of Shaphan. And Gedalia is told by someone who he really does trust, that Yochanan ben Karach and Sariah, the son of Tinchumes, that there's going to be that Yishmael ben Netanya, he is going really, he's going to try to kill you. Now, why would he want to do that? Well, he was also from Malchus, and he was upset. Like, why would you get the position? Why wouldn't I get the position? So you see that even under these circumstances, these are the last ones standing. Just be happy with what you have and understand, that this is a very tenuous situation. This is a time where you just bond together. But he doesn't do that. And Gedalia has misplaced Dan L'Kaf's, and he, there are times, and we always have to think in life, am I doing something l'shem shamayim, or am I just creating my own narrative? Like, for example, if you stay up really, really late writing in Dvar Torah, but then you are in a bad mood and violate Kibbud Avayim and V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, and just like not a nice person the next day, then really, what have you really accomplished? Like that's not what Hashem wants from us. And so here, what we have is the idea that Gedalia should not have listened, and he was in a very, very important position. He's in the important position of leadership, and perhaps as we get to the close of the Sefer, we have to understand that leadership is essential. He was the leader. We've now just gone through leader upon leader, where the person did not rise up to the occasion. He didn't do what was in the people's best interest. Either he introduced bad things to the people, or he didn't set the right limits by keeping those fakakta bamos, or he kept, the leaders were not effective as we could have used. There were some, but they were very far and few between. And so here at the end of the Perek, we're highlighting the detrimental effects of a leader not really rising to the occasion, not doing that hard job of what is needed. We have that Tzidkiyahu, tried to escape through a tunnel and didn't, and we have that so many people did not do what they needed to, and perhaps that is part and parcel of why the people are in such disarray and why they don't make it into the tshuva movement in its entire form. And ultimately, Yishmael ben Netanya, he who is from the Zera Melucha, and 10 people that are with him, they siding with perhaps the non-Jewish people of the people of Ammon, and it was through that Yishmael was acting as Ammon's agency, an agent, and he wasn't really doing it completely independently, except that he ultimately had wanted for his own political advancement, because he was part of the David HaMelech's family. He was part of the Melucha. And so was there a piece that he could have been a legitimate king? Perhaps. But he really hated Gedalia so much that he would side with something like that, which is perhaps something that is really negative. But in any event, what happens is that at that point, after Gedalia is killed, and all of the Jews and everybody with him they got up, and all of the officers, they got up, they came to Egypt because they were afraid of the Kasdim. And in the 37th year of Yehoiachin, the king of Yehuda, in the 12th month, On the 27th day of the month, we have a new guy. We have the new king of Avel Merodach, who is the king of Babel. And he, in this time, decides that he is going to release Yehoiachin from being in Beis HaKela, from being in prison. And what does he do? He speaks Vayidaber ito tovos, and he treats him well. Vayitina kis'o ma'al kiseh Melachim, and he gives him, respect, maybe a throne of some sort, while he's in Babel. And he allows him to change his clothing. He eats his meals. Some say that he allowed, while he was actually in jail, he allowed a conjugal visit, and through that, we're ultimately going to get to Zerubbabel, who's going to end up building the second Beis HaMikdash. Now, that's the way that the story ends. We have that's the last thing, that he was able to eat regular meals, and that after he's been in jail for 37 years, he's able to come out, and he's treated with respect. And the question is, so first we have this idea of Gedaliah, and Gedaliah is a leader that had misplaced righteousness. And then we have Yehoiachin. Now Yehoiachin, we know, he was not a very, very good person, and he ultimately didn't do things for the sake of the people, but he does teshuvah. In fact, not only that, but an interesting fact is we know that Nebuchadnezzar, who is the hugest murderer, he is the executioner. He killed, some say, millions of Jews in cold blood and tortured them. At the end of days, when he actually goes into the Beis HaMikdash and he sees, remember, the blood of Zechariah the Navi boiling, and he's not stopping to boil, and he keeps killing people, and he's getting very nervous about this blood. And he doesn't understand why it doesn't stop. And then he ultimately realizes that Hashem is so upset about one person who was killed in a way that wasn't bekavodik to him, and that didn't deserve it. And so he says, oh my goodness, how could it be that I killed so many people? And he becomes a ger tzedek. So he turns it around. So at the end of the story of what it means to go through the trials and the tribulations, and we're losing the Beis HaMikdash, we lost it, it's gone. And we're now all, after Gedaliah, we're all in Galus. And, there's going to be a second Beis HaMikdash. But at this stage in Jewish history, what we see is what I described, that we're across the street, looking at everything burning, we're displaced, our bones are broken, but we're still alive, and we can rebuild, and we can move on. And the idea of being able to do tshuva, of being able to pick up the pieces, to say, wait, I have my pulse, I have something, I will heal, and I will do better, is what ultimately is the message. And so what we have at the end of Sefer Melachim Beis, at the end of all Nevi'im Rishonim, is that we have so many life lessons to learn. And we're left with those life lessons. There's a lot of pain. It's really schar va'onesh. It's really, you do well, good things happen. You don't do well, Hashem says, I am consistent and I will punish you. And you'll be punished again and again and again until you learn your life's lesson. But when you do, just like after 37 years in a jail, when you do learn that life lesson, it doesn't matter how far you've fallen. Ultimately, you will be picked up, and there will be good things ahead. And we have to internalize the positivity of that message, that Hashem does not leave us in this way with just negative, and the house burned down, everyone's gone, and we live, and that's the end. But rather, there's going to come a new day. And especially during the time of the 3 weeks where we're still across the street looking at the house, like, oh my gosh, and our bones are still broken. But maybe they're healing. Maybe the scabs are developing. And maybe all we need is a little bit more to be able to be zocha to another Beis HaMikdash. I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has taken this first journey, this stage number 1, the Nevi'im Rishonim. In Yirtzeh Hashem, we will continue to grow together. I want to take the opportunity to thank the Rabbi Rosner, the OU Women's Initiative, to countless mefarshim and beautiful ideas that were shared. And I also want to dedicate this Sefer and this transitional time to my son. We talk about beginnings. Well, as my first son, now that we have, Baruch Hashem, new son-in-laws, my son Bear, who is going to be going, and for a lot of the next prakim that we will be doing together, he will be back in Eretz Yisrael, continuing his learning, and setting the stage for himself that should be one that is in the creation of his own brick by brick, that we will ultimately all be zocha to continue in learning and growing together, and in making Hashem the Father who can just have nachas. So thank you for the nachas, Bear, and in Mirz Hashem we will all continue to study together. And thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for giving us the opportunity and the capability to learn together biyachad. Okay, without further ado, in Mirz Hashem, we will continue on to the new Sefer Yeshayahu, and we will do Nibim Achronim.